So para inglés ver, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, of course, is Brazilian Portuguese for just for the English to see, which apparently is an idiomatic expression, which means only for appearances. Keeping up appearances, Max Verstappen in the post-race press conference, wondering where all the English press had gone after quite a ridiculous race weekend. I'm your host on this week's episode of Shift+F1, Danny O'Dwyer. I am solo. I am sorry. We're capping off a crazy weekend of F1 with a crazy episode of Shift+F1. Drew has business. He is on assignment. He has some stuff he's doing. Oh God, the way I say it makes it sound like something crazy is going on. Drew is well. He'll talk about it when he's back next week. I think he's camping. Rob is doing a charity live stream type thing in New York this week. And we were supposed to record yesterday, and your boy O'Dwyer forgot, and that was the only window in which we had to record this week's episode. So if you're writing letters of complaints to the Shift+F1 stewards, you can blame the Irish boy. As a way of compensating you, I have done a lot of preparation and research for this week's episode, and also we do not have a race coming up this weekend, so we will next week on the podcast get to sort of redo all the talk about it again with a week's sleep behind us as well, where we can really sort of digest how we felt about what happened at this kind of championship defining race. I don't know. It says a lot about all the drivers. But before we get into all that, we have a bunch of important housekeeping to do. First of all, if this is your first listen to this podcast, it's not usually the Irish guy on his own. But if it is, we suggest you head back to our preseason primer, episode 257 of this podcast, which basically gives you the 101 on everything you need to know to get into Formula One this season without any prior knowledge. Which will be useful in this particular weekend, because not only do we have a race, we have a sprint race, we had sprint qualifying, and I feel like we saw more flags this week. Not even just the yellow and red ones. There was a black flag. We got a black flag this race. We never see that one. That was great. Lots of crashes, lots of safety cars, lots of virtual safety car. Imagine if you're new to F1 and somebody said the virtual safety car. What would you possibly think? Lots to talk about on this week's podcast. But first of all, thank you to all of our incredible patrons over at patreon.com/ShiftF1, without whom this solo podcast would not be possible. And a massive thanks to all of our incredible title sponsors. It's a Me Ferrario, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agave ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SES, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foote, Abdullah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us Podcast, Bunny Fiend, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Faltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Irvine Clinical Research, that's where I always go for my clinical research when I'm in the Southern California area, Lachlan the Madden Man, Samurai Love Story, and of course, Jason Kelly. In terms of patron exclusive episodes, we already, I think last week we said we were going to do a vote, right? We're going to do a vote for 3 spooky, I was about to say Formula One movies. They're not Formula One movies. They're barely, actually none of these are motorsport movies either. They're movies with cars in them. Between Duel, Christine, and The Hitcher, we had hundreds of votes. Hundreds of votes. Get out there and vote. It's a bit late, actually. I'm recording this Tuesday night, so I'll have one tab open this whole time. Maybe that can be this episode. It's just me live blogging the election results coming in. Getting increasingly more stressed out. Hey, right now, you know how it ended. I don't. I'm living in blissful ignorance here. I'm just sitting here on my own in this room with 15 pages of notes for this race weekend. And I don't know who our president is. I have no idea. Apparently it's Joe Biden at the moment, but that's also up for debate. I don't think I've seen that guy in about 6 months. Anyway, the most important vote that we're going to talk about today was the one for the Patreon exclusive movie, The Hitcher, which was my suggestion. So maybe this is also a proxy for how popular the three hosts of this show are. The Hitcher was mine. I said 13% that got. Christine, which I think was the only one Rob had seen, got 38%. But the winner was Drew Scanlon's Duel, the Steven Spielberg's first feature. 49% of the vote it got, which wouldn't win you a presidential election in America. Sorry. All right, I'm gonna move on from this. We're gonna record Duel next week. I believe, and we'll get that up for all you beautiful patrons over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Okay, into the race weekend. So this was a sprint weekend, which means we have sprint qualifying on the Friday. We have practice on the Friday. Then we have sprint qualifying Friday night. The sprint Saturday morning. This is Brazilian times. Regular qualifying for the main race Saturday afternoon. And then the race on Sunday. Drew said last week, as we do our weather report every time, that the rain might play a factor. They had some pretty high percentages for rain. And the thing about Interlagos is you often get some rain. Like if it's going to rain, the rain is going to be this sort of like this uncalculable element because of the little microclimate that they're in. The clouds can kind of get generated and come in and no one's really quite sure. So when there's a high percentage of rain on the weather, that generally means we're going to get some rain. And the rain in Brazil does not mess around. Like I feel like this time of year, the rain in Brazil can be pretty torrential. And we saw that pretty much all weekend to some degree. The sprint itself had some interesting... I'm going to go through everything actually, including the qualifying, the sprint qualifying here in a bit of detail. SQ1, as we're calling it, was interesting enough. Bottas got into Q2, which was a pretty good result for him. Alonso was out in SQ1, but both rookies, Oliver Behrman and Franco Colapinto, managed to get into SQ2. Behrman actually got through to SQ3. In SQ2, Perez was the main scalp on that one. He did not make it in. He was actually coming around on his final lap and the pit box brought him in. Hamilton was also struggling to get a good position around that time. And like I said, Oliver Behrman did get into SQ3. And aside from that, it was pretty unremarkable, I would say. The McLarens were doing very well. They had the front row. Might as well just go through it. Oscar Piastri was in pole position. About a 10th up on Lando in second. Charles Leclerc in third. Max Verstappen with 109.2 in fourth. He was going to change his... I'm not sure if he had done it by that stage. But he must have changed his engine coming into the weekend, of course. What am I talking about? So he's going to take a 5-place grid penalty, but that is always for the main race. They don't do it for the sprint. So he will stay in fourth. Carlos Sainz in fifth. George Russell sixth. Pierre Gasly seventh. Liam Lawson in eighth. Alexander Albon ninth. Not a great result for the Williams there. Oliver Behrman in 10th. Out performing Nico Hülkenberg by 2. Magnussen was out this weekend. I think I forgot to mention that. That's why Ollie Behrman is in the mix here. He was sick. Not sure with what. Lewis Hamilton 11th. Nico Hülkenberg 12th. Sergio Perez 13th. Franco Colapinto 14th. A lot of love for Colapinto in the stands, which I don't know. Maybe I was wrong. He's South American, but like the Brazilians and the Argentinians are not exactly, best buds. But there was a lot of love for Colapinto. Maybe Argentines that live in Brazil, or maybe the animosity is not that bad. Maybe that's just the Irish in me thinking that we have to be angry with our closest neighbors. I don't know. Esteban Ocon in 16th, Yuki Tsunoda 17th, Fernando Alonso 18th. Oh boy, at least he out-qualified Lance Stroll by 3/10, who's in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu, who was barely visible this weekend in 20th position for the sprint. So off we go for the sprint. 24 laps on this one. If you don't know sprints, they're basically shorter races that don't require pit stops, unless there's rain, I guess, which was very possible. But honors even, I guess, when they started, the top four were in the same order after the Senna S's, which is where, you usually see people throw it up the inside. And that's exactly what Max Verstappen did on lap 3. His sort of his party trick this whole weekend. Max Verstappen tried it on Leclerc into turn 1. Didn't quite make it work, but on turn 4 and the end of sector 1 there, which was the other big overtaking spot, he did make it past Leclerc into 3rd position. Lap 9, great pass, Oliver Behrman on Nico Hülkenberg. And then Perez, sort of taking advantage of Hülkenberg's track position, also managed to get past him there. I think it was on turn 4, so Hülkenberg lost 2 places in short order there. Then we have Perez trying on Liam Lawson. I love this little fight between these guys. It's great. Perez, this is like it's like an alternative version of Formula One where you have to fight for your seat for next year. It's like a shootout or something. Perez tried on Lawson. Lawson wasn't having any of it. It won't be the only time those two have a little bit of argy-bargy this weekend. Verstappen did not get him past on turn 4 on lap 3. He did, though, on lap 18 on the straight, like I said, on turn 4 into 3rd position. And lap 20, Perez does get past Lawson on turn 1. Does a better job with that little braking zone there. It's a tricky spot. There's a reason why, like, there's a lot of action on turn 1 in this weekend. There's overtaking for one. People basically using braking a little bit earlier, trying to slow the car, slowing the car down a little bit late, trying to hug that inside line as much as possible. Because the big worry there is that you can very easily, because it's a funny turn because it's uphill on that start finish straight, but by the time you're coming down to the apex of turn 1, it's actually going downhill. And so there's obviously lots of dynamics with weight shifting, with a grip as well on the front tires that you're fighting against, when it makes the braking a little bit trickier. So the problem is that there's a pretty decent runoff area right there for that exact reason. So people who are sort of Lawson doing really well on that turn, but obviously being a bit more conservative. He's the car ahead. Perez throwing it up the inside. When he tried it on 15, it didn't work. He overshot himself, but he managed to get the braking right on this one and hugs in there and gets that position. Lap 21, Hülkenberg retires. There's a yellow flag that gets pulled out. And then basically this is only 3 laps from the end. So the worry is that they're not going to be able to get Hülkenberg's car out of there. He kind of pulls off in an awkward spot in the middle of sector 2 in that little go-kart track area down the bottom of the hill. And Norris at this stage is behind Piastri. He's about a second behind him, actually. He's in DRS range. McLaren make the decision to swap them, worrying that perhaps a virtual safety car would come out, or a safety car. Virtual safety car does not come out. The virtual safety car just comes up on their screen. The decision was made to swap the two of them with regard to the championship fight, and soon enough, a lap later, the virtual safety car is triggered, which means they all have to slow down, and there's a worry that it's going to end under VSC, but it doesn't. The VSC is pretty quick. They managed to get Hülkenberg's car out of there. Interlagos marshals ain't messing around. They know how to get a car off a track. We got plenty of experience in that regard. So the VSC is in. Verstappen does a really good job on the back, on the not the front straight, I guess it is the front straight, between 3 and 4. I don't know if he goes before the VSC is in. I don't think so. Maybe he had his delta a little bit lower and he gained a bit of speed, or maybe the VSC ends on the camera broadcast, the TV broadcast after, it happens for the drivers. But he almost gets the run on Piastri into turn 4 to get the overtake into what would be second. Am I gone mad? Is that what it was? I think it was. Into turn 4. Doesn't stick it. Am I right? I'm looking at the results here and I'm like, is that? I thought that's what happened. Am I gone crazy? All right. Disregard that. That either happened, or did he have a penalty? Did Verstappen have a penalty? I'm seeing the sprint results underneath me here and it's freaking me out. Anyway, he doesn't get past Piastri into turn 4 and they finish. Lando Norris in first, Oscar Piastri in second. I have Charles Leclerc down here as third. and then Max Verstappen in fourth. So I don't know, did Verstappen get a penalty? Did I miss something? Have I gone crazy? I don't know what happened. I don't think Leclerc overtook Max Verstappen into no, they were a second away from each other. There must be some on the website. They usually have the results and then the points in separate ones but they don't have it here. So apologies, folks. Sorry, I just noticed that now. Anyway, Verstappen's in fourth, Carlos Sainz in fifth, George Russell sixth, Pierre Gasly seventh, Sergio Perez managed to get into eighth position, Liam Lawson behind him in ninth, Alexander Albon finishes in, no, he doesn't finish in the points. It's a sprint race, so only the top eight. So Perez picks Lawson for the only remaining point. Albon's in 10th, Hamilton 11th, Colapinto 12th. Good job, Colapinto. Esteban Ocon 13th, Ollie Behrman in 14th, Yuki Tsunoda 15th, Valtteri Bottas 16th, Zhou Guanyu 17th, Fernando Alonso 18th, Lance Stroll 19th, and Nico Hulkenberg did not get classified because he only made it around 19 laps of the 24, which is what? 80%? Yeah, I guess you're not going to get quality. You're not going to get a classify for that one. You know what? I'm not going to get in trouble for forgetting to do the ad break. So that's what's going to happen right now. And we'll be back with more racing here on Shift F1. Welcome back to Shift F1. I wonder what the ad was. I don't hear the ads because I'm a patron of Shift F1 where you don't need to listen to it. So now I'm doing another ad. Oh my God. Okay. A lot of action has already happened. Good times. But don't worry. Sprint's over. So we're going to do qualification. You know, a couple hours. Just go home, get a massage, come back to the track and do qualification. But what's that? What's that outside? What is this? What is this moisture falling from the sky? Why, it's rain. And a lot of it. Qualification starts, rather the time starts, and it is bucketing down at Interlagos. There are, I guess the problem they have at Interlagos is, doesn't Interlagos mean between the lakes? Isn't it? So like maybe they built this track basically in a part of Sao Paulo which maybe wasn't, you know, the best land, you know, for building houses or for, I'm sure it's all fine now, but I'm sure someone would love to turn it back into houses. But when the rain happens here, you basically have a lot of, it's not even standing water. It's like flowing water coming down the Sena S's, and also the sort of the worst part is the water that comes down on the entrance to the start finish straight up that hill. But the worst part is sector 2, which is basically, it's just pools. So you just have these big lakes, big puddles of water that are just pooling down there. That are not just getting fed by the rain, but getting fed by all of the land above that, higher than that. So, I mean, and it's not even like a little bit of rain. Like the rain that we had here is basically bucketing down. And then the other issue is because quali in these sprint race weekends is done that much later, they have very limited daylight. So if you watched, I was watching it live, they basically kept kicking the can down the road. Fair play to all the fans who stuck around, but eventually, basically, they rained out quali. So this sort of creates a bit of an issue for how they're going to order the drivers for the race. So in recent years past, like in the time that we've been doing this podcast, I remember instances when this happened. I forget where basically they ran quali the morning of the race. That is ultimately what ended up happening here. But at the time, nobody knew exactly what was going to happen because also we had the sprint race involved. So generally what they would do is go by practice 3. So go by the times that were set in practice 3, which I guess is usually also the practice session that is done around the time of the race, not necessarily quali. So Q2 is usually the one that's a bit more emblematic of what quali pace would have been. But they do P3, presumably because, you know, P1 and P2 generally folks are messing with setup, trying to dial the car in, and usually you're setting your fastest time in P3, you know, But there could have been a scenario where they did it on P3 and P3 was rained out, so it was super weird, grid at that stage. So in this scenario, what they would have done is they would have gone back to P1. They wouldn't have used the sprint quality times or the sprint ending grid. They would have gone back to P1. I was hearing sort of reports from other publications and from other journalists on Twitter and F1 journalists saying that the language in the sporting guidelines was maybe not super specific about whether or not it would have been P1 or the sprint results, I think is what they were saying, not the grid. I could be wrong there. So anyway, it doesn't end up mattering anyway, because they ultimately decide to run qualification on Sunday morning, and oh boy, did that make for a good show. Okay, this is where I need you to be with me, folks, because the notes on this one are it's a lot. A lot happened for quali. Sometimes we don't even talk about quali on this podcast, but we got to talk about this quali. So anyway, Q1 it's raining. First of all, they start quali and it's raining. It's not raining as bad as it was Saturday, but it's still raining. Yellow flags all around. Liam Lawson almost immediately gets us on a yellow flag. Lance Stroll does as well down in Sector 2. So does Zhou Guan Yu. And then immediately we have a red flag. Franco Colapinto. Frank, I called him. Hey, my name's Frank Colapinto. Welcome to my diner. Franco Colapinto. I don't know why I wrote down Frank here. There's only one other letter. Was that really shortening it for your notes, Danny? He's out on turn 2, so they red flagged the session. Excuse me. They restart the session. Norris is in peril at the checkered flag. He is, I think, in 17th or 18th position with his time, but obviously there's a lot of track evolution happening here. A lot of the water's getting shunted around, so he is on a lap. And this is a dangerous track for this to be happening in the rain, right? Because all you need is one yellow. You don't even need a red flag or virtual safety car. Well, I'm not going to pull out one of those in qualification, but even a yellow sector, a yellow flag in any of the sector is going to basically completely ruin your qualification. So it's nervous times. Norris does actually get in, but he ends in 15th. His time brings him up to, I think, 14th, and then he gets knocked down by, I want to say Hamilton, but I could be wrong because he also had a really terrible start. Where did Hamilton end up? Yeah, he came 16th, so he obviously didn't make it in either. So someone else knocked him out. I don't know who exactly it was. Verstappen, no fastest in the rain. Something I would say is not particularly surprising. And also, I don't know if we have enough data to really confirm this, but I have said in previous weeks that I think Norris is not fantastic in the rain. I mean, this is definitely a bias coming from me because of what happened in Russia 4 years ago at that race when we used to race at Russia. God, I hated Sochi. Ugh. Anyway, Q2, Sainz goes into the wall. Red flag. Just, I don't know. Not a great weekend for Carlos Sainz altogether, but we have two. Did we get a red flag in the sprint? We didn't. But we got red flags in almost every other section. We've had red flag in Q1, red flag in Q2. They restart quali. They all drive around. They drive around in circles and try and set the fastest time. That's what quali is. And there's another red flag. Because, hey, so the Q2 is not over. Plenty of time for more red flags. Lance Stroll in Sector 1 bins it. So they red flag it again. The problem here is it's about 1 minute 30 when he goes off. They stick out the yellow flags for him. It's in Sector 1. So basically anyone who started their lap with 1:30 left, there's basically nobody on track who has started. Stroll is crashed presumably on his pace lap. He's not coming back around to the pits and crashes. And presumably if there's 1 minute 30 left, he was the last one to cross the line. So basically everyone in front of him in Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3, finishing their times is not going to come back around to Sector won at speed, right? Doesn't matter. Double waved yellows, that's probably all fine. At this stage, Max Verstappen is in the drop zone. And then with 46 seconds left, I think while he is, I want to say midway through sector 2, they drop the red flag, which basically means stop racing. 46 seconds left. So Verstappen is essentially knocked down. He gets knocked out of Q2. I think he was in 12th position. But he's also going to take that 5-place grid penalty, so he's going to start in 17th. So he was on, I mean, he had set the fastest time by quite a decent amount in Q1. He was probably, I assume he had enough pace to finish the lap and get into Q3. But because of that decision, he doesn't. I have tried to figure out what happened there. There's been so much written about the weekend that that one's got lost in the mix a little bit. It was a good example of, I wish Rob was here because he usually ends up coming across those little nuggets. I don't know why they waved the red flag when they had double yellows in one. The only thing I can think is there's a support vehicle or something came out and it was deemed, or maybe where the crash was deemed too close to the line. The line on the start finish for Interlagos is fairly far down the straight. I mean, the straight is ridiculously long if you don't count the 3 turns that it comprises of, because they're basically pedal to the metal. But it's not like Silverstone when it's just around the corner. It's a decent amount down. So I wonder if they were worried about cars coming down at pace. I can't imagine. Like, to me, it seems kind of nuts that they did this. And it obviously had a massive implication. And usually when they do this, they try and let the cars finish. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised that happened. Anyway, we start Q3. 7 minutes left into that. Not to be outdone by his teammate. Fernando Alonso also bins his car. And there's another red flag. Fantastic. Don't worry. Clean up Alonso's car pretty fast. Get them back out there. Hey, look. If we're going to have 2 red flags in Q2, why not have them in Q3? Alexander Albon coming up the hill has a awful little tank slapper, big crash coming up that hill on the final, I don't like calling it a turn, but I guess it's a turn. Final turn. Destroys his car. And it's to the point where obviously this is, usually when this happens in qualification, it means a lot of the people in the mechanics are going to be up all night fixing the car. Ultimately, he is unable to do that. Alexander Albon will not start the race. And qualification ends with Lando Norris getting the fastest time after a very scary Q1. George Russell beside him in second place. Yuki Tsunoda in third. Esteban Ocon in fourth. What is happening? Liam Lawson in fifth. Just rain, man. Rain. Just rain is, Bernie was right. Get the sprinklers out. Charles Leclerc in sixth. Alexander Albon finishes seventh, but he will not start, so everyone will get shunted up. Oscar, well, they won't get shunted up. They'll just be an empty grid box where Albon should have been, which is going to confuse some people, I think. Oscar Piastri in eighth. Fernando Alonso in ninth, despite binning his car. Lance Stroll in 10th, despite binning his car. Valtteri Bottas 11th. Sergio Perez 12th. Pierre Gasly 13th. Lewis Hamilton 14th. Ollie Behrman 15th. It's Frank Colapinto in 16th. Max Verstappen. He's Verstappen for no one. In 17th position, qualified 12th, like I said, 5-place penalty for that new engine. Nico Hülkenberg, which honestly, that's a chat I have to have with Rob next week. How do we feel about that? The 5-place grid penalty for replacing an engine. Seems like a pretty... I mean, this is a smart track to do it. Interlagos is a very overtakey track. If you have the pace on the cars, this isn't a tough track to overtake if you have the pace. Or if you know how to drive in the rain. Anyway, 17th, Nico Hülkenberg in 18th. After that crash, Zhou Guanyu in 19th and Carlos Sainz in 20th after his crash. So many crashes. Wonder if anyone was starting to feel left out. Don't worry, there'll be more crashes in this race, which we'll talk about after this. Now, am I kidding? We only do one ad break. I wonder what was in your ad breaks. Should I check in on the election? Just for a second. Just for a second. You know when they're starting and they're like, you know, all of these ones have immediately gone to the Republican because it's obvious and it's really scary. That's the point we're at right now. Yeah, okay, nothing too crazy there. Nothing too crazy. You know what is crazy though? This race, Albon doesn't start like I said, and then before the race even starts, Lance Stroll, who just didn't want to. I think he had some shit to do. He crashes on the formation lap, which apparently happened last year. I don't remember who did it on the formation lap last year. It wasn't Stroll because they would have said that. And I think if you crash on the formation lap on 2 races in a row, at the same race 2 years in a row, they kick you out of F1. So it wouldn't. I think they revoke your super license when that happens. So Stroll, you know what the worst part of this was apart from the terrible TV directing, which did not show the funniest thing that happened. I only got it on the replay. Was that not only did he basically went out spinning under braking at the end of the first straight down into turn 4, but it was that he tried to get out by driving through the wet gravel, which every child knows. He beached himself, but he couldn't do the. I get it if you don't like the tires up. Maybe you're more scared of crashing into the on a wet track, wearing inters. Maybe you don't want to do cute little 180 thing. But anyway, he beaches himself. So they abort the start, and then there's a very confusing situation where somebody was in the wrong grid slot, presumably somebody behind Albon, which would have been Alonso, but it wasn't Alonso. I thought it was someone, I think it was Behrman. Oh, was it because of Lance Stroll's? No, Lance Stroll would have been out then. Perez maybe went ahead of him. I'm not quite sure, but it looked like Behrman in front of Verstappen had, or maybe it was Colapinto actually, had taking, hey, which grid spot am I supposed to be in? Was in the wrong spot because Max was making a note of it, which seemed like a sort of a tattletale-y shitty thing to do. And, you're not racing these guys. Let them park in the wrong grid spot. Anyway, a bunch of them drove off before the green light started for the aborted start. It was when they were flashing red or whatever, which they shouldn't have done. Norris was noted for an infringement, but I don't think they did anything because half the grid did it. It was really strange though. They cut back to a bunch of shots of the good boys, No muck on the bottom of their shoes. They were all waiting on the grid for the green light. But anyway, they let them go around, sorted them out, and then the race started. And immediately, George Russell up the inside past Norris made it look easy. They put it a good start. We've talked about Norris's starts not being amazing. I feel like he's falling into the traps of the things that people say, which maybe were unfair, but are being proven correct. Not good in rain, not good at starts. And Norris was past him into turn 1. Hamilton had a terrible start, rolled back a bunch of places. And Verstappen had one of those starts where when you're playing the F1 game and you pick a really fast car and put it on easy mode and put yourself at the back just so you can overtake 5 cars in the first 3 turns. That's basically what he did. It was incredible. Blazing past a bunch of them. They hardly show it. It wasn't until the start of lap 2 when you saw Verstappen overtaking Hamilton into turn 1 for 10th position, where you were like, wait, what? How did that happen? Well, that wasn't a 10th. Was that 10th position? Hamilton started 14th. Now I'm looking now. Those are gremlin on my notes. Anyway, Verstappen had a great start. Into turn 1. Who didn't have a great first lap was his teammate Checo Perez, spinning in sector 2, just on his own. No one near him. Terrible for him. Started in 12th. He had a bad start. He was sort of he'd been overtaken a couple of times, then he ended up back in 18th because of course Albon hasn't started, and Albon Albon didn't start, and Stroll didn't start, but made his decision to not start on the formation lap. Ridiculous. Lap 4, Ollie Berman gets a 10-second penalty for hitting the back of Franco Colapinto. Hey, who hit me? and comes across with maybe my favorite team raider of the year, which was him complaining that it didn't affect him, which it didn't. Behrman hit the back of Colapinto and Behrman spun. Colapinto kept driving and then Behrman got a 10-second penalty. But that's what, look, if you crash into someone randomly, you're going to get a penalized for it. Who knows? Colapinto could have had damage to the car. He didn't, as it turns out, but them's the brakes for Behrman. Hopefully he can find them next time. Lap 5, Verstappen gets past Gasly into turn 1, and so starts his party trick for the rest of this weekend, or continues. Lap 10, he gets past Piastri into turn 1 as well. Just expert under braking in the wet. Doing a fantastic job. We're basically going between light drizzle and, intermittent, weather here. But it's pretty much a wet track the entire time. They're all on inters. On lap 11, Lawson basically lets Verstappen past in the second sector. Yeah, easy to know who Lawson thinks is the number one driver at Red Bull. Not that I think any of us are wondering who the number one driver at Red Bull is, but he's obviously looking for that seat next year. Piastri then hits Lawson on turn 1. Oh, if the Behrman on Colapinto one was inexcusable, this one was really bad. I actually think in a later, spoilers, red flag, he went up and apologized to Lawson for this one. Lawson was in a good spot here as well. Was he in 8th maybe, I want to say? He gets turned around on turn 1. I think Lawson rejoins in 10th and Piastri gets a 10-second penalty. Well earned. Hülkenberg spins on turn 1. Ends up out on the sort of little drag strip. It's not a drag strip, but it kind of has that look to it out there past turn 1. Like I was saying, that, in the rain, braking into that first turn can get some people. There's a virtual safety car. Hulk does rejoin, but is later given the black flag. Black flag. Not just a fun band, but also the flag you get if you're disqualified. And he was disqualified because he had human intervention. He had a bunch of awesome Brazilians around down there to basically help jumpstart him again. Pushed him back onto the track. You can't do that and continue racing. So they black flagged him. I'm not sure if he kept going or did they just wave the black flag and then he came back in. I hope he did stay out. I hope he was like, I hope no one noticed. So virtual safety cars, around lap 28. So we are in the window here when it comes to pits, wanting to get your pit done. Loads of people came in. Norris, Russell, Tsunoda. Esteban Ocon, who is driving one of the worst cars on the grid, decides, screw it, I'm going to stay out. So does Verstappen, so does Gasly. And then the rain, just like that Toto song, it just buckets down. Absolute sheets of rain. Ridiculous rain. Norris manages to pass Russell on the straight down into turn 4 because Russell's just freaking out probably by how insanely bad the rain immediately got, and then wouldn't you know it, safety car comes out. Bunch of people are able to pit on the safety car if they want, but Colapinto bins it. The same spot as Albon did in quali. On that crazy, that back straight. Up the hill. Rough crash. Like Albon's was rough. This one was, put the car in the recycling bin. It's just like crumpled up like a Coke can. So red flag comes out, which is nightmare for everyone who pitted. Basically, everyone who didn't pit gets a free pit stop now because you are allowed change the tires under red flag conditions. This is a safety thing. There are lots of scenarios in which red flags happen where they don't want, where they want the start, whether or not be a rolling start or standing start, to be not on dodgy tires. So they let you do it. And basically, Tsunoda, I guess Tsunoda was in a good spot as well. Messes up Tsunoda's race, messes up Russell's race and Norris's, and it puts Verstappen in second position behind Esteban Ocon, which is really something else. So they restart the race on lap 34. Let's just do a quick little check-in, shall we, on the grid. In the lead, we have Esteban Ocon. Behind him, Max Verstappen, who started 17th. We were halfway through this race. Pierre Gasly is behind him. So an Alpine on for some podiums here. Norris is in 4th. Russell 5th. Leclerc 6th. Tsunoda 7th. Piastri 8th. Alonso 9th. Lawson 10th. Then outside the points, when he got 6 cars. Hamilton 11th. Valtteri Bottas in 12th. Carlos Sainz Jr. in 13th. Sergio Perez in 14th. Zhou Guanyu in 15th. Ali Berman in 16th. Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Albon, and Stroll are all out of this race. They've qualified Stroll as 20th, which I find hilarious. So I just noticed that. So Albon was in 19th. Because I wonder why. Did they just count him out when the race starts? They're like, oh, he has his grid spot. He could maybe decide to come out at any moment. Is that what it is? It's like a technicality. It's like, oh, Albon could start. Like he could do a sort of last second Roy of the Rovers style. I'm going to do it. I'm going out. Surely not. Surely you can't join the grid after the formation lap. That's amazing. Stroll crashes on the formation lap and he's listed as a lower position than Alex Albon. I have to have a look at the race results just to see if that's also the case. It is. Why is that? That's ridiculous. Oh my god. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, Nico Hulkenberg was DQ'd. He was DQ'd, so he must have kept driving. He must have kept driving. He must have not come in. Oh, I love you, Nico Hulkenberg. Anyway, lap 34, they start. Norris spins on turn 4. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Bad luck. Lap 36, Ollie Berman into the barriers. Right at the start of Sector 2. Just trouble, man. This rain, the brakes. Shout out to Ollie Berman. Like, for goodness sake, how many times he crashed at this stage? Because he crashed in practice? No, he got through into Q3 in practice. In practice. In sprint quali he did. And then, did he crash? He crashed once, did he? He did. He had a red flag in quali in turn 2 I have here. Oh no, it was turn 2. Yeah, he spun it, didn't he? Yeah. He was coming down the S's and he got on the curbs and he spun it. Can you imagine getting the call? Because apparently it was like 5 a.m. and he got the call because Magnussen was sick to come in and fill in. And he's crashed down the race. But imagine that. Imagine having to do Interlagos in the rain. He'd never driven an I saw an interview with him a couple of days earlier. He'd never driven an F1 car in the rain. Unbelievable. But it's not just his experience that's making this happen, because 3 laps later, in almost the same place, just on the next turn, Sainz spins and hits the wall. Safety car again. Then the restart. The restart we have, so it's a kind of similar situation. You've still got Ocon in first, Verstappen's behind him, Gasly's there. Norris has now shifted back a couple of places. He was in 5th position. And when they restart, Verstappen does the Barty trick one more time. He needs to do one more time to be in first. And he does it on Ocon, on the restart. Terrific braking. Same as Russell did to Norris actually at the start of the race. Verstappen into first place, but perhaps even more importantly, Norris overshoots turn 1. Oh, rejoins in 7th behind his teammate, dropping 2 places. Lawson also gets past Hamilton here. And then they're all trying to stay on the track for the next 20-something races. Lap 46, Norris gets past Piastri. They let him past. Russell gets past Leclerc, who went off track on the exit of turn 4. Russell makes a easy job of it. And that's pretty much it. Everyone manages to nurse their Inters home at this stage, and Max Verstappen wins an F1 race for the first time since Spain. And I might be wrong, but I heard someone whisper this over the weekend. This is only the 5th time in F1 history that somebody who started the race in 15th position or lower won the race. That sounds crazy that it's only the 5th time. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard. Incredible. In any case, this was a real masterclass in rain driving in a track that obviously overtaking, is bountiful here if your car is fast enough. But Lando's car was fast enough and he wasn't able to do it. He was going backwards for most of this. Arguably, the only overtakes he was really doing in the sprint race and in this one were of his teammate under team orders. So, we'll talk about this next week with the lads, but you have to say that at this stage, if there was a moment, we've had so many championships decided on the hallowed ground of Interlagos. And although this is no longer the final race of the year, it's hard to argue that this is not also what happened this race weekend. Max Verstappen comes in first. Esteban Ocon in second. Pierre Gasly in third. Netting them 43 points, which in the Constructors' Championships basically has them leapfrog all of their competitors, which I think is unbelievably unfair on Haas, but we'll talk about that in a second. George Russell ends up in fourth. A decent race for him. He seemed quite annoyed with his team. He said Chauvelin bigfooted the decision with his team, to come in for the pit. He didn't want to. I always find that type of thing a little bit hard to... It's kind of a hindsight 2020 thing, especially in the rain. But also, given the amount of red flags that were happening here at Interlagos, I kind of have to agree with him, especially because they'd gone around a couple of times as well. You know what I mean? Like he'd seen it then. So anyway, that was Russell in fourth. Leclerc in fifth. Not a great weekend for Ferrari, but a worse weekend for McLaren, which is what all they care about mostly, really. And I guess Red Bull as well, so maybe not. Lando in sixth, Yuki Tsunoda seventh. Decent ending for Yuki. Probably, a bit unlucky with the pit stop as well. Oscar Piastri in eighth, Liam Lawson in ninth. 2 places ahead of Perez. Hamilton ended up in 10th. Really hated the car this weekend. Apparently the bumps. They had that trouble with the bumps in these cars a couple of years back in 2022, I want to say. So Interlagos was resurfaced this weekend, and apparently between him and Alonso, so all the geriatrics in the cars, were complaining. Alonso actually came over the radio a couple of laps left in the race and said, "I'm going to finish just for the engineers, but this is the worst bumps I'd ever experienced." Hamilton managed to get a point in 10th, Perez in 11th, Ollie Berman in 12th, Valtteri Bottas in 13th, Fernando Alonso 14th. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I yawned. It must have been because I saw Zhou Guanyu here in 15th position, the final racer to finish the race. That's what we called them. We called them racers. Not classified are Carlos Sainz, Franco Colapinto, and Alexander Albon, 2 of whom started the race. And then in 19th position. Oh, I guess, sorry, not qualified is not, is it, was it, wait, oh no, is it an alphabet thing? Oh, I'm so disappointed. Is it an alphabet thing? No, it's not, because Alexander Albon would be above Sainz and Colapinto, so it's not. Further research required. Lance Stroll second last. Nico Hulkenberg is put in 20th position because he was disqualified. Big slap on the wrist for Nico Hulkenberg. Bad Nico Hulkenberg. Bad. Ridiculous. And so ends a ridiculous Grand Prix de Brazil. That's what we call it. Absolutely nuts. Let's let's look at the driver standings, I guess, because that's the big important thing here, folks. After every race, this close to the end of the season, to take stock of where we are. Let's start with the hilarious Constructors' Championships. McLaren Mercedes in first position with 593 points. Not that far behind them. Let's do some math here. 36 points behind them. Oops, I just closed all my notes. That was the wrong tab. Is Ferrari in second position. Only 13 points behind them are Red Bull with 544 to Ferrari's 557. Mercedes then with 382. They're coming in fourth. Aston Martin, Aramco, Mercedes. It's crazy they're in 5th, considering how bad they've been in recent months. With 86 position, and then in 6th position, going from second last all the way to 6th. I believe it is $50 million is the swing that they will earn. $50 million if they can retain this, which I honestly don't know if they can, but we'll see. I mean, it's probably still 40 million if they come 7th, but they have 49 points to Haas Ferrari's 46. Then RB also had a great weekend, up to 44. So obviously Haas didn't have a car finish because Behrman and Hulkenberg both didn't finish. And they've been swallowed up a little bit there. So we're going to enjoy the Constructors' Championship is full of fun this year. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd having a great little battle. But 6th, 7th, and 8th separated by 5 points. Ridiculous. Williams Mercedes in 9th with 17 points. Which you got to feel bad for them too, right? Like they were 3rd last and now they're 2nd last. They don't deserve... Like did both their cars get into... Well, I mean, Albon binned it. But they both had good qualifying, you know. Shame. 17 points. And then kick Sauber at the bottom with 0. Valtteri Bottas. And then in the driver standings, Max Verstappen reigning supreme, 393 points. Lando Norris, 331. You gotta think 62 points is basically insurmountable at this stage with 3 races left, right? I don't know about that. Charles Leclerc breathing down his neck, 307. Then Oscar Piastri in 4th with 262. Carlos Sainz 5th with 244. They're close enough as well, actually. George Russell 6th with 192. Lewis Hamilton only 2 behind him with 190. Check up. Yeah, I wonder, did they swap positions this time around? They must have. Hamilton got 1 point and George came 6th. Did he? I think so. So they must have swapped. Perez in 8th. Alonso in 9th with 62. I'm so disgusted by Checo, I won't even say how many points he has. 151. Nico Hulkenberg in 10th with 31 points. Yuki Tsunoda had a little bit of a haul this weekend. He's in 11th now, 28. Pierre Gasly in 12th position with 26. Jesus. He jumps over Lance Stroll and a bunch of other people. Lance is in 13th with 24. Esteban Ocon now behind him. Just 1 point. 14th position with 23. Kevin Magnussen, who was absentee this weekend, in 15th position with 14 points. Alexander Albon in 16th position with 12. Danny Ricciardo in 17th position with 12. Ollie Berman in 18th with 7. It's Franco Colapinto. Come down to my used ice cream parlor. I'm in 19th position with 5 points. Liam Lawson's in 20th with 4. Then Zhou Guan Yu, Logan Sargent, and Valtteri Bottas with 0. No points. Nil point. Which makes them as good F1 drivers as you or I. Right? Isn't that how it works? I don't know. And not much in terms of news outside of that. I mentioned Russell being unhappy with his pit call. Charles Leclerc got fined for saying the F word, which you can substitute whatever word you want in there. He escaped community service that Max Verstappen got. Don't know why. But he'd have to pay €10,000. 10,000 yo-yos. Because he cursed in a post-race press conference. Which I think is a bit harsh on, you know. They should charge, like, less if it's not your native tongue. You know what I mean? That's not fair. Fantasy standings. I had this here, but I think I minimized it. I have so many tabs open you would not believe. And none of them have the election. I'm being really good. I'm being a really good boy. I'm not looking at the election results. But here we are for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix here in fantasy. You can join our fantasy league. Why you would want to do it with 3 races left is beyond my intelligence. But if you want to, the link is in our podcast. In our podcast description, sure. This looks like the Sao Paulo thing. I'm going to do the top 3. I think it is. JSC7 Racing came 3rd. Calling for Support came 2nd. And Sam Still the Pits Is this ours? I don't know. I don't think this is ours. I don't think this is our league. I hate this. No, that's not our league. Who are those people? I just mentioned a bunch of randos. I'm so sorry. I swear to God, every time I look for our league, and I'm in our league, every time I do it, I end up. This website is a nightmare, and I used to make websites, so I feel like I'm allowed to complain about that. I'm typing in Shift+F1 and nothing's coming up. Featured leagues. Oh, I meant featured leagues. No, of course we're not featured. Come on. Starter leagues. Oh my God, are we in starter leagues? No, there's a Lando Norris league. I wonder if you have to have Lando in your team to be in that league. Here we are. Shift+F1 podcast. I found it, folks. Ricardo Bulls was the name of my team, so you can tell how well that's gone. Top 3 here. Bristol Racing in third. Lady Wolfstrike in second. And Marco Zeus with 362 in first. But how do I do all races? Here we are. We'll do the top 10 for fun. Hosterclass in Motion in 10th. Cheeky Fernando's in 9th. The Fast of Us Part 2 in 8th. Forzo Vincenzio. Good job, Vincent. In 7th. Alpino Noir in 6th. Brian's Team Now in 5th. Orbeez We Have the Meats in 4th. Stroll Hats Up in 3rd. Leadville Racing in 2nd. And Mad Max Mad in 1st. Good job. Ricardo Bulls, just for those who are wondering, are in 2,116. Who do I have on my team? Do I have Ricardo on my team? I do. Well, that's on me. I think he's IR for the next couple of races. He's IA. Oh my God. He was IR for a while there. He busted up his ankle or his wrist. His hand ankle. That's what we call them. Hand ankles. Emails. shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails if you would like to send us some electronic mails. We would have talked about electronic mails on this week's podcast, but honestly, do you really want me answering them? Probably not. We are Shift+F1 podcast on various social media things. And if we take a second to race around the world, yeah, you will know that Super Formula is on at Suzuka for round 8 and 9 of the Super Formula season. Suzuka, of course, in Mie Prefecture. And the only other racing I could see this weekend was, of course, the end of the NASCAR season. NASCAR Cup Series Championship race, which presumably means the trucks are also doing it, is at the Phoenix Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona. Check it out. Some fun racing going on this weekend. We are, finally, goodness gracious, folks. We had 3 weeks back to back. I haven't seen my family in a month, but we're back soon enough. Close by, actually, and I keep getting tempted. I have some friends who are going. Las Vegas is very close to here. It's like an hour-long flight from Sonoma County. I'm working on a really big project that's going up on the Friday, so that could be the big blowout. I just go, but I actually think I just need to rest because I'm going crazy here at the moment. Also, America might be in civil war, so I mightn't. Airplanes might be grounded, so I have to take that into account. Although I could drive it, it's not that far. Anyway, Las Vegas is on week after next, the 21st of November. And then after that, we have Qatar a week later. And then Abu Dhabi a week after that. Is that right? It is. Thanksgiving, Qatar. What's more Thanksgiving than watching LaSalle? Sail! It's a great track for the clincher. This is going to be a fun little constructor battle at the end, folks. Let me tell you. All right. I got the book. Hopefully it's not a good one, because you don't always want me laughing to myself, do you? I didn't open it yet. November 6th. I got to go for November 6th. Where are we at? See, it's a foliage here. It's a real book. I'm not making this up, folks. We've got real books here. November 6th. The 1994 season was coming towards its conclusion today at Suzuka in the Japanese Grand Prix, the penultimate round of the championship. Isn't that crazy? Japan and then Brazil. What a great time. Sorry, LaSalle. Damon Hill needed to win to keep his title hopes alive, but Michael Schumacher took pole ahead of the Englishman. The race started in the wet, But when the rain got worse and worse until the drivers were spinning off the track, Martin Brundle went off in his McLaren and hit some marshals, oh my god, who were attending to another car. One of them suffered a broken leg and the race was red flagged. After some discussion among the drivers, the race restarted behind the safety car and Damon Hill drove a great race to win ahead of Schumacher. Man, I guess that's why they did the red flag when who was it went off? Stroll? Madness. The result meant the championship would go down to the wire as Schumacher took a 1-point lead into the final race of the season, the Australian Grand Prix at Adelaide. Sorry, I forgot. I remember that one. A race that would go down in infamy when Schumi drove into Hill to take him out of the race. It wouldn't be the only time that would happen between two drivers. I guess the Senna Prost one happened before, didn't it? Yeah, that was 94. That year, Schumacher won, I think. Crazy year. Yeah, crazy year too. There was a lot of Senna. I mean, we talked about it here. We talked about it on the podcast a little while ago. Some of the Senna stuff was a little bit OTT, but I guess it was it 20 years this? And I guess it's Interlagos, but yeah. Yeah, they love Senna, although they were singing Franco, we love you. If you'd like to support this show and get access to all of the bonus episodes, the ad-free version of this podcast, and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this was entertaining. I apologize again for not having the lads here, especially given the ridiculousness of this weekend's race. I hope I made a somewhat entertaining go of this episode. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit about this stuff next week as well when we have the whole crew together to talk about Vegas, which we'll be excited to do so. I guess we don't do emails after races, do we? But we will next week, so send in some emails because we haven't done emails in a while because there was a million races in a row there. One more check-in on the US presidential election just to see, to sort of capture the moments before disasters for all of you. Okay, it looks like everything is bending the normal way. I think. I don't know. Oh, Donald Trump has 178 electoral college votes to Kamala Harris's 99. But you know the way it does that swing at the end? Squeaky bum time right now, as they say. Stay safe out there, folks. Take care of each other, and we'll see you next time on the podcast. Bye. We'll see you next race weekend.